So as I promised, I said I would talk you through my travel journal and just some decisions I made and what I did. So here it is. As I said, the book cover came at the very last location and I bought it at a old bookstall near the Trevi Fountain. So I really only added that at the very end. What I was doing is working on 6 lengths of paper that I pre-folded and torn off large A1 sheets of paper. And so I would just glue them together as I worked through my book. So let me just talk you through the first few pages, then I'll add another video and talk you through the next lot. So as I got started basically before we even left London, and I added my I left space for my bag tag, which clearly was only able to be added in London, but I took a photo, this is it, in fact my husband took it, and while I was in the Qantas lounge, before even leaving, I printed this out. Now I was pretty sure the quality of the printer would be good. I had to work out how to elongate the picture and make it smaller in the frame so it would fit on my 5x7 gel plate. These are all decisions that you're making on the go. I actually took some quite nice paper, so I slipped that into the tray of the laser printer at the Qantas lounge and printed that off quite beautifully. So that printed well. That was the first page I did. So added some text. I picked up some poster fragments as I was walking around Spitalfields and Shoreditch, and these are a couple of those same pieces. That's a bit of a spare bit. As I said, when I got there, I added my bag tag, and interestingly, in London, we got off on the wrong bus somewhere, and which meant that we walked a route that we didn't normally walk, and I was able to find a lovely little antique market and found a couple of UK stamps. That's one of them. But then what I did ask the gentleman was whether he had any Italian stamps, because that's where we were heading. And so I was able to buy this single page of old Italian stamps, which I then have used in the pages to come. So here we have it. We've got Sydney to London. Then the next spread is, let me just position that, is we're in the middle of Gel Printers Summit, and so I worked through Sally Hurst's lesson on creating texture in a gel print. And interestingly, I happened to have these supplies with me, which were a couple of supplies that were required for Sally's page. So I was able to drop on some of these fluid acrylics. I was able to spritz them with my little atomizer, and then was able to leave them to dry on the gel plate overnight, and then add the titanium white, which was the opaque colour on top. So I was lucky that I actually had those. Once I did the print, I then thought, well, why not? I'll incorporate it into my book. I've since added text. I've written my locations around it. And then as I work through, I added some stencil here, which I then incorporated back. You'll see some of this gold stencil, which is this one. And again, I am just repeating the patterns. These are all things that I do in my travel journal with a gel plate course. So that was that. Then I did a wax crayon rubbing, and here is the original little rubbing. So again, another technique out of my course. I've added some just some torn poster bits. I've done a bit of journaling. I've added some collage. Then we come over here and I've got 2 image transfers that I got done in Naples. Now, one was at I think one was at our hotel, and one was at I've written notes now on the back, Progress Print, which was done in Naples. So, it wasn't perfect. It was quite light, but it's about, the fun stories and behind finding these locations, of communicating through a translation app. I've incorporated some of those stamps that I bought, those Italian stamps. I've used a little underground Napoli ticket, popped that in there. I've used a quote out of one of my travel guides. Coming over here, I've done some leaves, botanical printing in both green and gold, and again just sort of incorporating them over other prints. So I've used the same leaf, it's from an orange book tree, and I've printed that way in green and then upside the other way in gold, just to layer it. Written some notes, collected a lovely business card from a restaurant where we had an amazing meal. So pop that in. I didn't want to cover up the address, and so I've attached it with some washi tape, and I've just written here, fabulous restaurant in Sorrento, and just explained where we stayed and why we stayed there. The next page was a method that I've used. Again, here are the leftover sheets. So this is a method explained in my travel journal with a gel plate course. I did it in 2 pieces. I printed it in 2 pieces because I only used the smaller gel plate twice. So that's a resist method there. Oh no, that's not a resist method, that's a biro method. Again, I have used the tickets from going to Pompeii and some texture medium, collage. I did some stamping with corrugated cardboard. Let me see, I think that was the piece I took with me. So I just stamped that onto my gel plate, stamped that, and it gives me some journaling lines. I then used some more collage, more Italian stamps, and I drew myself a map. So that's where we're up to now. Okay, part 2 of my travel journal. We've now left Naples and moved on to a little hill town in Italy called Melfi. And I didn't have access to a laser printer, but also it's a matter of mixing different techniques. So in this one, I used the biro technique and painted onto the gel plate, transferred it, and then added a bit more definition onto my page. I left this page blank because I wanted to do a simple transfer of a photo in Albero, but again, didn't have the opportunity to get a laser print at the time, so I just left that blank, and we moved on to a place called Matera. Sadly, I wasn't able to take photos inside the incredible rock churches, so they provide, thankfully, you can buy some good brochures, and with incredible, this gives you an idea of some of the beautiful artwork on the walls in these rock churches. So that had to suffice for this one. So with this one, I've got 3 pictures. I've written rock church frescoes. Open it up, I've got a couple of postcards, and I've put my map of Matera in there, just a bit of collage. That could do with a bit more. I just have not come back to that. So that just, is a situation where I'm relying on collage and tourist brochures to fill a gap there. I did manage to get a print from the reception at the hotel we were staying at, but I wasn't confident it would print okay, so I did print it onto tissue. So that is tissue collaged in over my watercolour splatter. You perhaps have seen me doing the rubbing of that one, and that was also in Matera. The first print worked nicely, but then the second print, just because the paper wasn't quite as absorbent, was a bit messy. But you know, that's all good. And so that, while the definition isn't there, it tells a story and it reminds me of the beautiful view of Matera, a town cut into the rocks in southern Italy. Then we moved on to Sicily, and my husband rode his bike up Mount Etna, which meant I had to drive the car. And I took a photo. So this is, again, I left a space here because, and thankfully I did, because later I found a printer that did an amazing job, and I was able to give him several of my photos that then I could print back in. So while the journal is chronological, it's good to leave some spaces where you know you want to add things, but you perhaps don't have the tools or what is needed at that point in time. So this is just on my 5x7, but what I've done, I've used the photo for reference and extended the lines of the gel plate. So that's actually just a line outline of Mount Etna. I've continued the road down here and continued the poles of the sign. So that's another technique from my course. Again, here's a wax crayon resist method, another map of Ortigia in Syracuse in Sicily, some more stamps, a bit of collage. This was a random little technique I used to create that pattern off a mirror in our room. So that was a bit of an interesting one. Not highly successful, hence I've sort of covered a bit over with my map and some stamps. So, you know, if you do a print and you're perhaps not overly keen with it, you can always just cover it over with something as well. It's not a matter of being perfect. So I've got some texture medium here. This one is I love this stencil. It's a Stencil Girl stencil, and it works well as just a generic, simple, but it just really works. I really love it on my pages. So I've added some extra collage and watercolor over that. This particular image is actually from this book. Sorry if there's a reflection there, but I found an old book, and again, I was pretty sure that these would transfer. So I took the chance, bought the book, and that is the image transfer that resulted from one of the pages. So that is from Syracuse. It's not my photo. Again, it's from that book. Then a bit of botanical printing. This was just a branch of a little sort of pot plant, really, where I was sitting 3 days in a row working on my journal on a little balcony. And so that reminds me of, just having that beautiful, peaceful time of creating on a balcony, looking out over Ortigia. It was gorgeous. Then this is not my print. I've got a note here, supporting local artisans. So I particularly love this, just the print, and so I've just glued that into my book. Then because I was in Ortigia and Syracuse, I managed to Google this print shop. That's why I've glued it in there. So I was incredibly thankful. This gentleman, he was patient. He had really great gear. We communicated completely via a translation app. He couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Italian, but he was able to print this one and this one and back into this one. So that's where, when I was in Ortygia, I was able to backtrack and do 3 of my prints. That transfer is over a bed of collage, which I've then used a catalyst blade to just sort of smear out the paint. So maybe just one more spread in this, and then I'll go on to another video. The next one is Valley of the Temples, another resist method. Again, this is the biro technique where I've sketched one of the temples. This was a botanical print. I'm not overly happy with that spread. I've actually kept and pressed this piece of olive branch, and I'm sort of considering actually gluing that branch into my journal, but I haven't decided completely yet. And then just over here, it's really just a combination of collage. This is a business card of a restaurant where we had the most incredible Sicilian paella, and we were just looking out over the Duomo. It was a really memorable night. I've just stuck it in with my washi tape. I've collected a bit of collage and some stamps, and so that's where I'll leave you. Part 3 of the travel journal. So I'm now in Cefalù, and apologies, that's probably not the right pronunciation, but I've used such a pretty town in Sicily. I've used a biro method to transfer the image and then done some watercolour painting on that one. That's just a Boughton map, an old map, which I have outlined our route on, a little bit of washi tape, just continuing the same 2 washi tapes throughout the book. This particular one is printed actually from a postcard. The cathedral in Cefalù was spoken of as a fantastic cathedral with amazing frescoes. Sadly, they were all covered with hessian when we were there. So I bought 2 identical postcards, and the finish on them is not a gloss like that. So you can see how glossy that postcard is. That is not going to print. There's a coating on that, a gloss coating, which covers the paint, and so nothing will transfer from that. But this one is not the same. It's a polished, it's a nice quality paper, but it's not, it hasn't got that coating on it. I've got a printing background, so I can make the distinction. Usually, it's not always the case, but you know, I've got a pretty good eye for what will work. So I actually did a laser image transfer, or sorry, not a laser, like the postcard image transfer from the other postcard, and it printed quite nicely. And then I did the painting on the back of the gel plate. Now, I tried to replicate, not very well, I'm not an artist, the effect of the mosaic, but I was pretty happy with that and thankful I was able to just remember it even though we didn't see it. So again, here we've got a bed of collage. I'm now in Spello, and that's back up. We had a very long drive from Sicily up to Spello, which is in Umbria. And so here I've got a botanical print overlaid on a bed of collage. And I've added some watercolour definition in that one, which I was happy with. Again, a stamp of my corrugated cardboard to create some journaling lines, an old postcard. Spello is full of incredible artists, and one of the artists I absolutely loved his work, and if I had a spare €3,500, I would have loved to have bought one of his artworks, but this is him, Marchioni, and this is just one of the, I had to make do with a catalogue. So I bought that to inspire me because I could not afford an original artwork, sadly. And then I was able to find somewhere that could do a laser print for me. So I went into one shop and again, communicating via the translation app, said, no, we don't do it, but go around the corner. Fantastic. He was just so efficient and quick. I just emailed the photo, which is the usual way of getting the photo I have found to the print shop. So just emailing it as an attachment. And so this was our little 1 o'clock spot, Vino Sofia in Spello. And yeah, I really love Spello. This particular one, we then did a little side trip just to Assisi to see the cathedral there, the Basilica of St. Francis. This was another example of printing out of a book. So I found this old book. Apologies if you're a book lover, and I'm a book lover, but I do think that, I'm not adverse to using them to tear up and use in my collage. So I could tell again that some of these would probably print beautifully on the gel plate. So bought the book, and that is the result of one of the prints. So I've just added some watercolor and paint in over that. In that shop, I also bought a little old envelope, and that's their business card in there. So just glued in, cute little envelope, one of my Italian stamps, a bit of stamping from my textured wallpaper. And then over here, I've done a bit of a collage base, although you can't see much of it. It was layer upon layer with this one, trying to get it to, something I quite liked. Still not necessarily, loving it, but, it's full of texture. So this is my texture medium paint. I think I started with acrylic bases, but I'm not really an acrylic girl. I then brought in my watercolor splatter and just colored it with some watercolor as well. So that's a bit of a mixture. Fiats are a big deal in Italy, and they look so cute in the streets. So a bit more collage, a few more stamps, a bit more splatter. This is a laser print from our hotel in Rome. We were there for a conference and an event, and so the print that the hotel did was quite good. So I was able to do it onto 2 side-by-side 5x7 gel plates. So we've come to the end, and here's just a bit of collage of the event, the festival I was at, and just wanted to add a little, sort of memory of that festival. It was pretty amazing. So there we go. That's my Southern Italy travel journal. Hope you enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed creating it.